Okay, I think it's time to take a closer look and see just how bad it is. And it is pretty bad. Hello everybody, welcome to number 27. I'm Jack, and today I'm going to see what I think is possibly the rustiest Ferrari in existence today. So I've done a few videos on cars with stories. I'm really interested in cars that have an interesting background, or for example I did a Dino V6 recently which was owned by Pininfarina. This is a car with a whole different type of story, but all the same I think it's just going to be interesting. A, let's see the condition, because from what I saw from some of the pictures I was sent, it does look really bad. But B, also I think interesting to find out how did it end up like that. So I'm up to Staffordshire, which is roughly in the middle of the UK I think, and we'll find out when I get there. Well everybody, here I am, and let me just tell you that this Ferrari has completely surpassed all my expectations. Now it may well be that I'm a bit weird, but I can tell you that I am more excited about seeing this car than I would be seeing a 288 GTO or some of the more fancy Ferraris. I absolutely love a car that has a story. And a car in this state, which is something that you just don't get, you don't get to see that today with any Ferrari. For me, it just, I don't know, I love it. I would literally encapsulate it in a glass box and put it in my living room. It is just frozen in time. I absolutely love it. But let's talk a bit more about this car, what's happened to it, and a closer look at the current state of it as well. This is a Ferrari 308 GT4. This was the first car that used Ferrari's cross-plane V8. Ferrari wanted to make a four-seater, but they wanted to be able to keep the wheelbase down. So in order to do that, they decided to have a transverse V8 engine with the gearbox underneath, and that's why overall it's still been kept so short. This was also designed by Bertone, and you can see that. It was actually the first Ferrari ever designed by Bertone. Before that was always Pininfarina. And you can see the design influence. It's so similar to the Stratos, the Lancia Stratos. Now, a lot of people didn't like these. It has been one of Ferrari's black sheep for a long time. However, they have in recent years, like everything, appreciated in value, and I always loved them. I thought that rear quarters angle, I thought it was great. It's only the straight head-on which I never particularly liked, but I think actually they're quite handsome cars and they can look really good. Okay, I think it's time to take a closer look and see just how bad it is, and it is pretty bad. So let's start off with this side, and immediately, I mean, the state of that door is what grabs you first. It's got holes that are big enough for a hand to go through. I would definitely say that the door, like most of the car, is probably past it. It's also quite interesting to see that the front of the bodywork here is absolutely gone. Now, it's quite interesting because these cars still had a separate sort of steel tube chassis, and I think that is the only reason why, despite looking like there's absolutely not much left and certainly no sills, it is still holding together in one piece, and that is because the sills on these, like on my 308s, they were merely cosmetic. So it doesn't matter that they have completely dissolved, but the amount of metal that is gone is simply, it's breathtaking. So the wheels actually are pretty good. They're really good. And these are from the factory. There was the option of having the wider wheels, and that is what this has. I think already we can tell that the car itself is I would say beyond saving. There isn't much left which is still usable. Even the roof here, there's some tape on there I think to cover up some of the holes. There's visible holes. This part of the rear three quarters is probably the best bit of the car. The arches, as you can see there, all absolutely gone. It really is a complete basket case. We'll have a quick look afterwards as well. There's the Disegno by Bertone badge as well. The rear end, my god, it is just horrendous. Look at it. There really is so little left that you could salvage from this car. I mean, the way the exhaust tips have rotted off there as well is pretty incredible. It's a shame the rear screen there is cracked because they're probably quite rare and it would have been salvageable. Now there is no engine in this car because the engine has been saved and has been rebuilt. I don't know if there's much in here that could be kept. You can see that the back of the chassis, well, it does show actually, even the tubes there do show some significant rust, but it's not as bad as you would think here. There are a lot of solid bits of metal amongst the incredible rust. I feel like an archaeologist doing this. I absolutely love it, exploring through and looking at it. So on this other side, things are pretty much just as bad, if not possibly even worse. This door, oh, you can't, it is just atrocious. Right, let's have a look inside and see what it's like. So interestingly, this is the top of the airbox here. These are actually worth quite a lot of cash. This one, I would say, is probably beyond saving, but they are thousands of pounds. And I think the other part of it, yeah, there's another one here. So that is a shame, because they are sought after. Let's take a look inside. I just love it that it's so dusty. Look at that. It's just been preserved in time. So the headlining up there, unsurprisingly, looks like it's gone. There's sort of mould. The seats, the rear seats, look really good. I bet you that is one bit of the car that you could clean up and it would look absolutely fine. The front seats, there's a couple of bits going there, and obviously the material's gone, but they're not too bad. I wonder what the mileage was like on this. I think it probably wasn't even that high. All the instruments are really good. It's got some weird sort of old style radio amplifier of some kind. This car also had aircon by the looks of it, or maybe not because the dial isn't there. I don't know if it's come off. Vintage radio. I mean, the whole car is quite complete. It's just that the chassis itself is, you can't save it, but you could probably do something with the car, the identity and so on. Chassis. Yeah, the chassis is very rusty as well. Well, there are some bits that are okay, but most of it is beyond saving. How on earth did this Ferrari end up in this state? Well, we're not exactly sure. One thing that is quite interesting that I was told from the owner is that Scott Rattarossa actually thinks that he tried to buy this car at some point in the 90s.
Yo.
Scott, how you doing, buddy?
Alright, mate, alright.
Good stuff. I've recently been to see like this GT4. When I was there with the owner and stuff, he said that he thinks he'd spoken to you or something, that you think that you had tried to buy that very car back, I think, in the 90s or something. Because I wanted to try and work out what the heck happened to it.
Right, so yeah, you're talking early 90s. I think I was 19 at the time. I was working in High Wycombe, Hewlett Packard, and we had this supply guy, an old chap there, and he knew of my passion for Ferraris, and he says to me, I've got a friend who's got this old GT4, said it needs restoration, but it's £2,000. I was like, oh wow, okay, alright. So being a young whippersnapper, I was like, yeah, I can stomp that up. I think I can get my hands on 2,000. And I said, yeah, I'll go for it. Can we go and see it? And I think it was Essex, but I'm not sure. Anyway, I went there with the chap, looked at the car. It was in a barn, and that was what, over 25 years ago, early 90s, definitely, almost 30 years ago. And basically, even then, the car was rotten. I remember the nose badge. I can't remember if it was a Ferrari one or some of them were badge D. That had completely rotten through. The badge had gone. It was just a hole where that was. Most of the front wings really, really bad, had holes in them. The interior, it was all there. This was the thing with the car. It was a complete car, engine, interior. I paid the money, £2,000 for it, and the owner just couldn't find the paperwork for it. And it got 2 months, and couldn't wait around. And I was like, no, forget it. I pulled out of it. The car was located in an open barn, so like a hay bale coverage thing, in the middle of nowhere, and it was just sat there uncovered, and yeah.
So I was just curious to see at what point had it deteriorated so badly. But obviously, when you saw it, although it was savable, it was already pretty bad by the sounds of it.
It was, when I say it was savable,
yeah.
it would have been a heck of a job to save it then.
Already, okay.
Mainly bodywork wise.
Yeah.
It was just, very rusty.
But what's crazy, dude, is that your BBI sat on a driveway for how long?
2006 it was parked up.
So it sat on there for 15 years, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've seen it. It's not too bad, is it?
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I know the front frame had a little bit of rot in it, but generally it's absolutely fine. And then you look at this car, and I don't understand how it got as bad as it has. Because, as I said, an airy barn is not perfect, but actually it's not that bad. Yeah. And your car was out on the street for like years and years, and it was all right. And this thing, you'll see, it's incredible. It really is. All right, buddy, listen, thanks a lot. It was really good chatting to you, and really interesting to hear your link up to this car, man. I really appreciate it.
Most welcome.
Now, incredibly, this car comes with a full set of keys, 2 ignition, 2 for the doors, and so on. So it's a full set of keys, including the spares, which is quite interesting. If we look at the V5, what we can see from there is that it starts off in 99, which again, this tallies with the fact that when Scott apparently tried to buy this car in the 90s, it had no V5, so it's obviously had to be re-registered. Since 99, it has basically just had 3 owners. And I think there's some of the information here is one owner had it from 99 all the way to 2015, and I reckon that must be when it sort of deteriorated. It's quite interesting if we see the paperwork from Maranello concessionaires. The archive supplied some information. So the car was actually sold in January 1979 by Cooper Car Sales in Rothley, Leicestershire. And the original order was, the colour is Bianco Polo Park, which I think is a reference to North Pole or Polo Nord, which is an Italian thing. Nero seats, i.e. black seats with cloth inserts, which have now faded and look bluish. Black carpets, Nero carpets, air conditioning, the wider wheels that I mentioned before, and the front fog lamps. Anyway, if you know anything about this car, chassis number is F106AL14574, then please do let me know. Ever since I was a young kid, I've always loved sort of grandeur in decay. So that's things like the old buildings in Cuba, for example, old industrial buildings that are sort of decaying, or grand old cars that are sort of rusting away. Anything of that kind always had a really intense appeal for me. Indeed, I was always obsessed as a child by the Titanic, pretty much for those reasons really, just imagining what it would look like now, exploring it, all that kind of stuff. And this car for me fulfills that perfectly. I just love it. When a car isn't perfect, when it has clearly been through time, it just tells a story, and that's what I love about it. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate it. If you need to contact me, Instagram is the best way. And do keep a watch out. So for those of you who are diehard fans of the Influenzo, it hasn't disappeared. It is still there, and it is still broken, as always, although it is running. It does need some major engine work, and there's stories to come on that. So I will do an Influenzo update soon, so keep an eye out for that. See you very soon.